In this next and final panel of the day, we are diving into how and why men choose to show up and make a difference in their various spheres of influence. What's in it for men to care, right? To give a shit. What's in it for men to care? And how can we inspire positive action through culture and storytelling? Really honored to have assembled this panel. Our moderator is Ross Morales Rocketto. You can come out as I'm calling you in. Ross Morales Rocketto, co-founder of Run for Something, who has been named to the Time 100 Next list and is widely, thank you, widely recognized for shaping American politics by building civic infrastructure. We very much need that right now. He serves on the board of New Media Ventures and is currently building projects designed to support healing and resilience for men at scale, right? This day has been all about how do we scale this work with a goal of reaching 100 million men across the US. We can do this. I know we can. All right, calling in the other guys on our panel, Jimmie Briggs has 3 decades of experience as a journalist and advocate. He's the co-founder and executive director emeritus of the Man Up campaign, which started in 2010, a global initiative to activate youth to stop violence against women and girls. Jimmie's a contributor to Vanity Fair and among scores of other publications, and he's completing a book on 21st century masculinity. Side note, I think at our next Marketing to Men Summit, we're gonna have like a Bowie's book club, a library in the corner where you can grab all of the incredible books that these men have written and are in the process of writing. All right, we have Rafael Espinal, the executive director of Freelancers Union, where he leads national advocacy for the independent workforce. A lifelong New Yorker, he started his career in public service, elected to the New York State Assembly, and later serving in the New York City Council. Thank you. And we have Adam Vasallo, the Chief Marketing Officer for Big Brothers Big Sisters of America. He has more than 20 years of experience in marketing, brand strategy, and partnership development, and he leads the 120-year-old youth mentoring organization, Strategy and Positioning, Digital Experiences, Campaigns and Performance Marketing, Content, and Insights. So let's get to it, guys. Oh yeah, you gotta turn it.
It's on. All right. I recognize that we are the last panel between you all and happy hour. So I promise we're going to do our best to make this as interesting as possible. First, I want to just say thank you to Jana and her team for organizing this. And if folks can just give a round of applause to everyone who's been a part of organizing this. It's been a great day. And we're just going to jump right in. We've heard a lot of really awesome things today. One of the things that we've heard as we've talked about the epidemic of loneliness when it comes to men, and honestly not just men, is that there's also a disconnection from purpose. And that's, people are feeling a sense that they're not connected to something larger than themselves. And as human beings in the world, that's something that everybody needs. And so, one of the things, and that's actually part of why we're seeing Gen Z is the first generation in a couple to have seen increased church attendance. And it's not necessarily because they're more religious than previous generations. It's actually because they're looking for something bigger than themselves to feel like they're a part of. There are other sort of traditional ways that that's manifested across our culture over time, whether it's the military. One of the things that I would love to ask everyone on this panel is other than sort of those more traditional places like the military, church, fatherhood, what are ways that y'all are seeing that tie men and boys to that sense of purpose? And where do you see opportunities around that? And we'll start with Jimmie because he's not new to this. He's true to this.
Thank you, Ross. Again, thank you, Jana, for organizing this and having us on the panel today, especially with these amazing gentlemen to my right. I think, Ross, from my experience with my journalist hat on, and having been a co-founder of Man Up Campaign, it's been said before, but really reaching people where they are, making connections where they are. I'm a New York transplant. We have a transplant from New York recently to Baltimore, Maryland, and the work I do there, engaging with men and boys, is actually much more informal, much more authentic, I would say, much more proximate. It's not in church, it's not in schools, or after-school programs, it's not in terms of sports. It's actually on the corner, on the playground, on the basketball courts, at the bars, hanging out with guys. Baltimore, like many cities in this country, is afflicted because of the overdose crisis. And so, I see, going through my neighborhood and those surrounding it, I see a lot of men, primarily black men and Latino men, who are lost, who have been victimized by the war on drugs, not the overdose crisis, but the war on drugs specifically, which targeted them as black and Latino men. And so, I often, encourage them and myself to just have authentic conversations about what they're experiencing, how they see themselves as men in this world that has largely disenfranchised them because they're not cis straight white men. And I say that specifically because I think, if I may just add this frame, I think, I've been listening throughout the day, we have to be able to name the systems that we're operating under right now. We're operating right now in a place on this date of amplified white supremacy, patriarchy, and capitalism. And we see that because, and I sit next to 3 Latino men. The Supreme Court has told us that based on your skin tone and your accent, they can profile you. And so that's another additional lever, additional trauma point, or pressure point that Latino men and all men of color face. We have to acknowledge intersectionality of these conversations, and also the systems that we're operating in to heal all men, not just certain men. Whether you're queer, Asian American, indigenous, whatever, all men have to be healed together.
That's extremely hard to follow. But I want to piggyback some of the things that you mentioned, right? And what I'm seeing personally is a lot of young men in their 20s finding a greater purpose in reconnecting with themselves, right? And by reconnecting with themselves, they're building strength and being able to reconnect with others. So I'm seeing a lot of young men investing on ways to eat healthier, spend more time in wellness spaces, getting together and doing cold plunges at the beach or at the local spa and sauna. And it's beautiful that this shift is happening. And I think that we have to do everything we can to continue encouraging people to view, not to look for the exterior to see how they can get more involved in a larger picture, but how can they look into the interior and deal with their own emotional and psyche and see how big and vast that is and how much change you can actually have by addressing those needs.
It's doubly hard to follow both of you, so it just gets better. I would say Big Brothers Big Sisters, we were founded in 1904 right here in New York City. I feel like whenever I'm in New York City, I have to say that. 120 years ago, the mission was founded in the early 1900s in response to the boy crisis. As young boys were trying to navigate this new industrial revolution, as they were trying to figure out ways as immigrant children to fit into society, as they were trying to navigate a world where maybe their parents weren't at home. And fast forward to today, 120 years later, and the mission is still just as important, and it's still a solution for society. And so a couple years ago, we launched a campaign called It Takes Little to Be Big, and it was based strictly on insights of what is going to attract men to our mission. Across the country, we had 30,000 kids currently waiting to be matched with a mentor. The majority of those kids waiting to be matched were boys. And as we looked at how do we close this gap, we said, well, let's talk to the potential volunteers. Let's talk to all of the alumni that we have as a part of our mission. And what we found out was that there were two barriers to entry for the potential volunteers in our mission. One was time, which we all hear, right? And every marketer hears that, the reason we're not engaging with your brand is because we're busy, we're time, or something. But the second barrier was the one that we really zeroed in on, which was that there was a burden to the word mentorship. And we've heard mentorship all day today, so I just wanted to share this with the group. And the burden of mentorship was that men were telling us they didn't feel like they had what it takes to be a mentor, that they didn't have superpowers, that they didn't have enough high school or college degrees to compete or to bring something to a young person. And what we know from years of work is that the most important things that a young person needs in a mentor is being present and being persistent. That's it, right? So you're life qualified as a caring, positive adult male. So it wasn't about, when we launched the campaign, It Takes a Little to Be Big, it wasn't about, hey, let's get the right targeting and let's get the right message. I mean, we did those things. We showed bigs and littles playing football or watching a game together or playing a piano together. Just everyday activities that have a lifelong impact on the life of a child. But I think what was most important to us was finding a way for us to invite men in and making them feel important and worthy and showing that they were, they brought incredible value to the mission. And so we did things like we asked men, hey, how do you want to be engaged with? And what we heard was, hey, this is a mission that's focused on one-to-one mentorship. I'm not comfortable being with a child. You know, I've never been around a child before. How do I do this? And what we found was, okay, maybe we need to innovate. Maybe we need to find a group mentoring program where you can do this together as a group with your friends. We found programs that were focused on sports. How do we do this around sports? And so I think those were the most important things. We took it all the way down to stop calling it volunteer recruitment. Like volunteer recruitment, it's like, we need you. What we really need to do is just create a place where they felt welcome. And so the first questions you're asked when you walk into a local Big Brothers Big Sisters office is no longer, hey, could you take a drug test? Hey, could you pass a background check? Those were things that no longer needed to be asked because we knew that deep down, none of those backgrounds mattered. What was most important was, can you be a caring, positive adult for a young person? So I'd say that those are really important.
That's beautiful. As there's been an assault on DEI, a lot of organizations and brands are afraid of being seen as too political if they align themselves with like DEI programs, and you know, like that goes for all sorts of brands, big and small, the government, research institutions that are afraid of having their grant funding cut. I would love to hear from you all about how you would recommend for these organizations and these institutions to help try to navigate that in the environment that we're in, especially given a lot of the needs that we know that boys and men have right now. And we'll go back the other way, so we'll start with
Me? Okay,
yeah.
back to me. I'll be quick because I feel like for a youth serving a youth empowerment organization, kids are, it's not a debate for young people. There's enough room under the tent to support young people. I think we can all agree young people should be empowered. Our mission believes every young person should have a caring, positive adult mentor. You know, as a mission, our focus is to rely on just to lean in on our values. We create access through the power of mentorship. So access, belonging, fostering a sense of belonging, having a caring adult who's somebody outside of your family unit, investing the time and the interest in you is something that fosters that sense of belonging. And then opportunity. Our fastest growing demographic of young people served is age 18 through 25. And people are like, what? Like Big Brothers, Big Sisters? That's like kindergarten through high school. No, like it was something we started testing before the pandemic was, hey, what happens for when young people graduate high school? We've all been high school graduates, or we've all been 18 and 19, and those are the years when we most needed mentors. And so we created a program called Big Futures, which serves young people through age 25. And so for us, that opportunity means making sure they're prepared for life after high school, whether that be entering the workforce, or attending college, becoming an entrepreneur, enlisting in the military. But these are the things that we want to prepare young people for, and opportunity is a key value that, again, is one that we hope is not debatable.
I represent the Freelancers Union, and we are a nonprofit organization that's focused on helping build the self-employed, the freelancer, the solopreneur, those who are out there trying to make it on their own, right? And in this country, there are over 60 million people who are chasing the dream of starting their own business. And one thing we try to educate them on is that you have to be your true, authentic self in order to capture an audience that is going to invest in what you have to offer, right? And, you know, unfortunately, in today's society, I think we all can agree, there has been a glorification of cancel culture, glorification of cringe culture. And these cultures are creating an environment where people are afraid to be their true, authentic themselves, right? They're afraid to come out with their beliefs. You know, maybe sometimes some people should keep their beliefs at home, but people are afraid to take the necessary steps, which I find I like to call courage in order to be successful. But if you look at brands and companies that stick to their values, like Patagonia, for example, right? Patagonia is a company that invests their profits back into the environment, and the owner of that company has not been shy or has shied away from talking about what's important to him as an individual and his company. And if you walk down Wall Street, you see every single Wall Street broker and person wearing a Patagonia jacket while they're investing against the environment. So if you stay true to who you are, people will buy into what you have to sell them, and I think authenticity is where it's at.
First of all, I've got to tell you, thank you so much, because when I was living in New York as a freelance journalist, I was in the Freelancers Union, so I'm grateful for the Freelancers Union. I appreciate the work. Ross, and just to amplify what's been said at this point, I really believe that we were talking about this briefly before our panel conversation. Unfortunately, we're in a place right now, and we all understand it, the stakes. We all have families, livelihoods, homes, families to take care of. But as we were noting before the panel, appeasement does not breed success. And I think capitulating to forces that seek to misinterpret DEI, which seek to spread misinformation about what DEI was meant to do, about cultural diversity, is dangerous. We have to be able to celebrate our respective cultural histories, our historical memories, and I think, as Joshua was noting before, finding that common ground, that common humanity. We can be proud Black Americans, proud immigrants, proud Latinos, proud Asian Americans, proud queer people, queer Americans, and still find that what connects us to our neighbor, our coworker, the parent at our children's school. And I think it's fundamental because, again, just authenticity, as it's been echoed so far, by not naming the thing that afflicts men and women, because to me, talking about men and boys, you can't, separate the conversation from women. This is really a gender conversation, as much as a conversation focused on men and boys. And I think we have to be able to recognize that we're in a society that actually has a detrimental impact, a positive impact on certain men over versus other men. And I think, being able to do that allows us to have, as Rafael noted, authentic, proximate conversations. Originally, I'm from Missouri. My mother taught in Ferguson. And I remember after Michael Brown Jr.'s murder, Trayvon Martin's mother spoke to, the protesters in Ferguson, and she said, if they can't hear us, we have to make them feel us. And so by that I mean, I want to be able to be a proud Black man in this country, talk about intergenerational trauma, going back to slavery to this point, as a Black man in this country, talk about the systemic barriers to being a man of color in this country, and find the common ground with my white brother. I can do that. It's possible. As a journalist, I know it's possible to bridge that divide. And so I think DEI, it's become an anathema to even say that word out loud in certain spaces, especially if you're seeking funding or if you're on social media. Fine, we can call it something else. I mean, in a way, as a writer, I'm going to say this. I don't think the phrase matters, actually. I think the authenticity matters, how we show up, how we name our traumas, respectively, how we name what afflicts all of us collectively is what's important.
Thank you for that. All of you are coming at these issues from a variety of different perspectives. So I would love to hear a little bit more about how in each of y'all's work, you're currently trying to help both young men, boys, and men get connected to some sort of sense of purpose, and therefore finding community and also trying to make the world a better place. Why don't we start with Rafael?
Yeah. So it's in our name, right? We're called Freelancers Union, and the idea is bringing in folks who took the courageous step of working for themselves together into collective to ensure that they're not out there operating in silos, opening themselves up to potential exploitation by their clients or companies or employers that they're working with. And we take that to heart, right? It is part of our mission to ensure that we are building a collective voice within a community that historically has gone unheard or underrepresented by our current, historically by government. So we, for example, have created a free co-working space here in New York City. And in that co-working space, we rent out free desks and we create a culture of collaboration, right? And in that in that collaboration, we hope that men are able to come together, share ideas, and learn that even though you're out there trying to build a business on your own, you're only as successful as your network, right? You're only as successful as the connections you're making, right? So behind every successful freelancer, there is a sea of people who have supported them along the way, providing them opportunities to their next job, providing them with ideas, connections. So we do what we can with our space and our resources to support that idea of collaboration between workers.
Okay. I think, in terms of, our current work, a big focus for Big Brothers Big Sisters right now is, last week we released a study done in partnership with the Harris Poll, and it focused on Gen Z, 18, 25-year-old young people across the country. And one of the things that we created the study, it was called Career Confidence in Crisis. And what we found was among Gen Z, 74% said they don't have access to a mentor to help them navigate these formidable years ahead after graduating from high school. Of those, only 41% said they had confidence moving forward. And what it tells us is that there's an entire future workforce for America that needs confidence in these steps ahead. And we know how critical it is to enter these years, whatever those decisions are after high school, where you feel confident and you feel like you're going to establish a foundation for yourself. So our mission, we know that we help young people do better in the classroom. We help young people create better relationships and foster better relationships with family and colleagues. And so I think that's one of our biggest focus right now is this area of young people 18 to 25, and really focusing as early as middle school and preparing them for these years ahead.
I think Ross, for me personally, it's really been two loves of my life. One is teaching, going to the classroom, and just showing up, modeling a certain type of manhood, a certain type of humanity for the students who I engage. I think the other thing is writing. I'm a writer, so writers got to write, and I feel like, especially in this moment, being able to build proximity and connection to young men and boys, helping them tell their stories, being a messenger for what they're experiencing, not on social media, but through print and through other platforms. You're really building that connection, and I think, I've been thinking about this a lot, not to get too political, but I think right now this is a political conversation in this country. I've been thinking a lot especially in the wake of Charlie Kirk's death, and understanding his connection to young men, particularly young white men, and why that's the case. And I feel like we have to, and I think I'm so grateful for Big Brothers and Big Sisters because you all have mastered this, through your mentorship program. There's a reason why it's over a century old. It works, and I think whatever our pathways are, whatever our gifts are, whatever spaces we're operating in as men. We have to use those spaces, to actually interact one-to-one, one-to-two, one-to-three with as many young people as we can, because I think that's what's been missing for so long, and why people are susceptible to the so-called manosphere, that lack of humanity, human connection. Sometimes it's messy, sometimes it's awkward, but you have to build it.
When campaigns and nonprofits spend millions of dollars trying to convince men and young men to give a shit about a thing, whether it's voting for a candidate, whether it's a cause, whether it's something else, what have you guys found helps get people connected to caring? And what have you found that doesn't work around that as well? And we'll start with, we'll go back to you, Jimmie.
I would just say authenticity. Just authenticity. I think, young people, particularly today, are so savvy. They understand who's not real, who's not speaking truth, who's not speaking facts. I think, authentic messaging, authentic personality, not being something you're not. And then I just go back to proximity, being in community with people, finding people where they are. And I think also the messaging is critical too. 15 years ago, when my cohort, my collaborators and I started Man Up Campaign, we wanted to focus on the tools of connection that young people at that time. It wasn't so much social media or tech, but the tools that the cultural tools that young people were using to build community with each other, through sports, through arts, through music, through other modes. And I don't think that blueprint's changed. We have to be willing to, and this is not my space, but I'm willing to enter the space to understand. We have to be able to engage in conversation and go into the gaming platforms. We can vilify gaming all we want, but that's where young people are. So, by distancing ourselves from those places where they are, we're not going to build a connection. And the same thing, frankly speaking, with the so-called manosphere. I don't agree with the prescriptions for what's ailing young men and boys, particularly in the West, being prescribed by people like Andrew Tate or Jordan Peterson or Theo Vaughn and others. But I think there's some truth to their diagnoses. Some of the things they see are actually accurate, and we have to acknowledge that. But I think we have to understand why their prescription is resonating with the population of young people and offer alternative prescriptions. But we have to be in the spaces where they are. Otherwise, we're just talking to ourselves. We're just talking to people watching this, or we're disconnected from the people we're talking about. We have to go where they are and actually get into where they are to engage in conversation and engage authentically, not pretend to be, a Gen X, a Gen Z, or millennial, but actually go in as we are and engage with the tools that they're using to talk to each other.
He said so many great things. I'm not sure. But I guess just to add to the idea or sentiment. There's and I said this earlier. I think there's a greater fear that has been instilled in men in the past 10, 20 years, especially with the rise of social media, of embarrassment, right? And because of that fear of embarrassment, as I said earlier, people are afraid to speak up, people are afraid to take risks, and what that is doing is driving young men to burrow themselves in holes that in which they find themselves in solitude with themselves, and creating a space where these negative ideas and thoughts that are where the world is working against them, instead of them seeing the opportunity they can take to make the world work for them. It's perpetuating what we're seeing, and we as a society as a whole, through our organizations, through this group, have to tell people that it's okay to be embarrassed. Through embarrassed, you're going to find growth. Through growth, you're going to find success. Whether it be building connections with your neighbors, whether it's bridging the divides that we're seeing play out in the national media. The only way we're going to get through this divisiveness is that if we are able to tell each other what we were told when we were kids: sticks and stones may break your bones, but your words will never harm me, right? So we have to get back to that, right? We have to get back to being okay, to expressing how we're feeling and our ideas, and making it okay to see young men do the same.
It's hard, again, to follow both of you, but what I'll add is, Jimmie, I think you start with authenticity again. And, I think a unique route that we've been able to utilize at Big Brothers Big Sisters is really taking the mission, which is it's a nonprofit mission, and connecting it into culture, but doing so in a really relevant way that starts with the stories of the alumni of our mission. And so, if anybody was watching football last night for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, running back Rachaad White scored with a 1-yard touchdown run to win the game for the Buccaneers against the Texans. Rachaad White's an alumni little brother, and years ago he took his helmet off and he started sharing his story. And the NFL has a helmets off strategy, and we've really leaned in on it, and we've been able to find players throughout the NFL. And this is just one example of a corporate partner, but the relationship that we have with the National Football League started because their players were saying, "Hey, mentorship's important to me." We see these big, rough, and tough guys on the weekends and on Sundays. But when they take off their helmet and they talk about the caring, positive adults that poured into them, whether it was a barber or a teacher, and those are the things that have a really big impact, and then take you to a point like we had earlier this year where Big Brothers Big Sisters was featured in a Super Bowl commercial. But it only starts because of those grassroots efforts by NFL players. They're saying, hey, I was a product of mentorship and I'm going to give back. And I'll just add, Jimmie, because you were like, hey, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, there's so many great nonprofits out there doing mentorship work and youth empowerment across the country. Big Brothers, Big Sisters have been doing it a long time, but we can't do it on our own. And it takes a network of mentorship and sharing of best practices. And those are things that are just critically important to move a mission like Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and more importantly, the big M of mentorship forward.
I'll give that one to you. I'm a Houston Texans fan, but I'll give that one to you because it was a good example. All right. Again, I know that we're the only thing standing between you and happy hour, but the last question, and I would like to end this on a high note, is what is giving you hope right now? And we will start with Adam. We're going to start with you because nobody's going to want to follow Jimmie.
Hope. Let's think. From a micro level, my little brother Giovanni, we've been matched since he's in the 4th grade. He just started his junior year of high school, and he's killing it. And I was sharing with somebody earlier, he makes me cooler. He makes me feel like I'm cool. I'm not. My kids would remind me of that too. But I see, here an 11th grader, right, who's getting ready for the world in front of him. And beyond that is that we have a room full of marketers here. Is that, while we talk about, Corporation A or Corporation B who's maybe walked back some of their commitments, there's still more that are stepping up and doing more for the communities. There's community organizations teaming up. And so, these are unprecedented times, but what we know as a mission is that human connection is critically important. And whether we're connecting as humans, as community partners, as corporations, that these are important connections, and rooms like this are critically important for us to advance and have hope.
Amazing. Not to get too political, but my answer is political. I was a former city council member, and I served in the city council for almost 8 years before I took on this role in this Freelancers union. I've been there since the first, after President Obama stepped away, and we had the president come in at that time, who is now our president now. And I think where I am feeling a lot of hope is in our potentially incoming mayor, Zoran Mandami. And no matter how you feel about his politics, whether he's too left or whether he's a DSA or whatever it is, I think for the first time in a long time we have someone who's a candidate who is bridging divides, who is focused on bringing all communities together to find the common good and work towards that greater good. So if you're able to take a step back from whatever you might feel or see from him, given his political stances on issues, and just hear what he's saying and how he's saying it and who he's speaking to, I think you can see and find hope in the future of our politics.
Close this out, Jimmie.
The pressure. It's just been an honor to get to know this conversation, Adam, Rafael, and you, Ross. Looking forward to building more at this conversation. I guess for me, I've been thinking about this a lot. Maybe it's a function of age, but really kind of going back to my ancestors and going back to the older men, who I would say mentored me in a way at First Baptist Church of St. Louis, where I grew up. And these older men, these were all black men. Some were uneducated, undereducated. Their Sunday best was the best clothes they had, but I was talking to my older daughter about this recently, how, whenever I accomplished something academically or otherwise, they would find me after church and press that crumpled $1 bill or $5 bill in my hand to say, we see you, we got you, keep moving forward. And so I think about them a lot, just because I feel like, again, maybe a function of how old I am now, but just looking back and just recognizing, this work is continuum. This is intergenerational work. What the four of us are doing up here, and those who spoke before us, we're really planting seeds. We have to water those seeds and nurture them for the young men and the boys and those yet to be born who come behind us. And just thinking about it through that spectrum of intergenerational connection, I feel like we're going to be okay. Men are going to be okay. Women will be okay. As a society, we'll get through this period.
And we'll end on that. Thank you.